Simply Scuba presents the Deco Stop podcast.
Hi everybody, welcome to Simply Scuba and welcome to the Deco Stop podcast. It's been a very quick week this week. I don't really remember very much of Wednesday for no particular reason other than just I think everything's going like according to schedule and days just tend to disappear nowadays. But there have been a couple of updates to the website. So the main one is the new Fourth Element RF2 wetsuit. So RF stands for Recreational Freediving. I'm actually, that's my product of the week, so I'm going to spend a bit more time on that a little bit later. But if you're into freediving, it's a thicker, like 654mm wetsuit. It's got different thicknesses on different panels, which makes it a bit of a mouthful. But yeah, for colder waters or just longer dives. We also have the Paralenz Dive-In Pack. So the Paralenz Dive-In Pack, it contains a Paralenz Vaquita dive camera, which is the dive camera that's designed and built by scuba divers. So it actually includes a depth sensor on the inside, and it adjusts the color correction depending on your depth. So normally with cameras, the deeper you go, it just becomes blue until you like bring some artificial light or you do some kind of white balancing in the background, whereas the Paralenz kind of does it for you. And now the new pack includes the pistol grip because it's kind of shaped like a torch. You can fit it to the side of your mask strap, but I find it a lot easier with that like drop pistol grip torch, camera. So you actually have a little trigger on it, just like a pistol grip, and that actually works to activate the mechanism, so it's very intuitive. It comes with a lens cap as well to protect the lens, and it comes with a travel case, which is pretty cool. I've been making some changes to the Simply Scuba front page as well. So new header banners, I've changed the dimensions of them so that they're a bit thinner and skinnier on a desktop model. You probably won't see too much difference in the mobile sizing, and just some funky dynamic images that I got from the manufacturers, so they're pretty cool. As well as the some of the brand pages. If you have a look at Apex as a brand page, and then if you head over to Fourth Element and Atomic Aquatics, Mares, X Deep, a few of those, I'm starting to try and throw a bit more color and imagery into those, just to spruce up the website, basically, just so it's not so sort of white and just full of text. So if you're into those, let me know down in the comments below. Heading over to social channel updates. So with Fourth Element, Friday's AskMark, I was answering questions on dry suit maintenance. Someone wanted to know a basic breakdown on how to look after their dry suit between dives, which is very much just give it a good wash and a scrub with fresh water and then hang it up to dry outside of the sun. And for long-term storage, especially if you have latex cuff and neck seals, I like to give them a little bit of a dusting with a non-perfumed like talc powder, just because latex just tends to degrade pretty quickly, and especially if it's touching itself, then it just like melts basically, which is why I tend to prefer silicone nowadays. But that was quite interesting. Someone asked a question. I think it was a little bit of sort of fun, but I played with it. They were asking about bolt snap maintenance and how often you should bring it into your local dive center, your bolt snaps. But actually, yeah, you do have to look after them because they are an important piece of kit, if I do say so myself. But yeah, it is important to lubricate them just so that the mechanism still works when you want it to. Someone was asking about any potential downsides of getting a BCD bladder that has too much lift for your needs. The main ones were the cost, because of course the larger the bladder, the more expensive it gets, and then the just excess of material. Unless you use some kind of retractor system that kind of tucks the wing in, then when it's deflated underwater, you have a lot of this excess material, which, granted, only if you're diving in confined spaces, you got this additional material that can just get snagged in stuff, as well as the potential taco effect, which if you have a donut-style bladder with no retractors or anything, and you put a small amount of gas, or actually, a relatively small amount of gas inside of that bladder, if your cylinders aren't wide enough to kind of hold the two lobes, the two sides of the bladder down, then they're naturally going to float up around the cylinder, and you get this taco shape. And it means that the lowest point of the bladder is the dump valve. So you kind of have to be like knees down, shoulders up to be able to dump gas. So those were the potential downsides. Someone's asking about fin sizing. They're just investing in a new dry suit, and instead of fitted boots, they're moving over to socks, neoprene socks with the rock boots over the top. And because of that extra layer, do they need to go up a fin size, which is effectively yes, because I think their original ones were fairly snug on their existing dry suit. So now getting a new dry suit with an extra pair or an extra layer, you're probably going to need to go up a size in fins. Someone's asking about depth changes. They were relatively new to scuba diving, and they'd only ever been to relatively shallow waters, and they were just asking whether there was any benefits or sort of any real changes to diving a little bit deeper. And yeah, it's mainly in those first like 30 meters, I think, was their range. They'd never been to 30. They'd only been to like sort of 10 meters or something. And it's the light starts to disappear, so it starts to get a little bit darker, which means it starts to get a little bit colder as well. A lot of the colors become desaturated, and some of the marine species, you don't see them as well because they tend to like it up near the warmth. But it's not a bad thing. It's just something that you kind of get used to when you're diving a little bit deeper. And the last one was about marine conservation and how I got into marine conservation at such a young age, and that was mainly down to volunteering. But I was just a general research assistant at that time, so that was the best way for me to like sort of get in and actually do something. Yeah, so they were very interesting questions on the AskMark show. So remember to head over to YouTube and subscribe if you're not already. On Saturday, my Google Answered, where I type in something scuba related into Google and then answer that people also ask questions. It was about submersible pressure gauges, and I think I ended up. It's weird how the questions are kind of related, but they often lead you off on weird tangents. And yeah, I ended up talking about diving cylinders, I think. And then on Sunday, dive brief on handy hand signals. You guys and girls seem to enjoy the previous dive brief, which was on like basic hand signals. So I figured I'd throw in some extra useful ones like yes and no. Very remedial basic things, but it's not taught during your foundational courses. So it's kind of rare that you need them, but if you do know them, it's kind of useful at times. Instead of just using the okay for yes all the time, it's quite nice to see an actual yes from time to time. Other than that, I think I was talking about danger and sort of ending a dive and all that kind of stuff. Entanglements, I think I started talking about lines in that one as well. So if you're just after some new hand signals to expand your vocabulary under the water, then check out the Sunday dive brief. And next Tuesday, or this Tuesday, I should say, I've got top tips on logbooks. I'm just trying to branch out because as much as I could do more on regulators and BCDs and stuff, dive computers, I'm thinking about the more obscure ones that I've picked up over the years. And top tips on logbooks. And I think I got a good like 8 or 9 out of there, but if you're interested, head over to YouTube on Tuesday at 2 o'clock GMT. I think I release videos nowadays. Check it out. Moving on to industry news, the first one is a bit of a rumor. that I've just heard. It's unconfirmed, but apparently, rumor has it that that Shearwater are discontinuing the Perdix, the regular Perdix only, and they're only running with the Perdix AI, the wireless air integrated version, which kind of makes sense. Instead of splitting the focus and creating two incredibly similar dive computers, it's just one has wireless air integration, the other one doesn't. They're just allegedly running with the Perdix AI, which kind of makes sense since they brought out the Peregrine. So the Peregrine is a like a light version of the Perdix. It's meant for more recreational diving, but it doesn't have wireless air integration. So having a non-wireless dive computer, large color screen dive computer, and a wireless air integrated version, it didn't quite make sense. So, and also I think last year, or towards the end of last year, they were having real production issues getting hold of some microchip or something. So I think they had to really cut back the literal numbers of Perdixes that they could produce. So yeah, it kind of makes sense, but yeah, as of now, I had a quick look online to see if I could confirm it. I couldn't find any like official news to confirm it, so that could just be a rumor. But don't be surprised if you can't get hold of the non-air integrated version of the Perdix in the future, because it might be that they're not making them anymore. Researchers from EV Nautilus have discovered what appeared, or well, they joked to be a yellow brick road underwater. This is about, what was it, a kilometer underwater. They were diving with the with one of those ROV submarine things, and you can hear them like commenting over the video as they're like looking for different rock formations and trying to analyze what's sort of down there, because this is off the Liliuokalani Ridge in Papahanaumokuakea Marine National Monuments Park, and they're cruising around. They're looking at these different like sediment structures and taking samples and things with one of those like robot claws. And then as they're cruising around, they see these very weird rock formations on the seabed, and they're very long, straight, like rectangular, almost cut. They look a lot like a paved stone, like pavement road basically, and yeah, they joke that it's a yellow brick road and the road to Atlantis, but they do say that they reckon they know exactly what it is. It's effectively a dried lake bed formation, which has since flooded, obviously, but they say it's a fractured flow of hyaloclastite rock. These are all new words to me, but it's effectively a volcanic rock that's formed in high energy eruptions, and after it's settled, because the Hawaiian region has so many volcanic eruptions over the years, it's like a heat stress as it heats up and contracts and heats up and contracts over years and years repetitively. It creates these straight lines and 90-degree angles, which you don't tend to see in nature anywhere. So yeah, very interesting. They have a whole YouTube channel with all sorts of like underwater footage of this. So if you're into your like underwater rock formations and stuff, definitely worth checking out. I'll put a link down in the description below. Scientists, in an effort to reduce the effect of catching crabs underwater, have inadvertently found that catching sea scallops is a lot easier when you use disco lights. So what they're basically trying to do is, normally with a crab pot, you put some dead fish inside of the crab pot, you throw it overboard, it sits on the seabed, and then a little bit later you come back, collect it, and there are hopefully crabs on the inside. But to help reduce the potential damage and and whatnot to other marine life by putting this bait inside. Scientists are trying to work out if there's any other things that they can do. So what they tried in this experiment was using small underwater lights that they call pot lights, and they're just small battery powered lights that just I think they flash, but especially if they call them disco lights, but they flash to try and attract crabs without the use of bait. But what they actually found was, whilst they didn't catch quite as many or any more crabs than usual, they were catching a lot of scallops. And scallops, despite being this kind of like mollusk seashell thing, they have 200 eyes apparently, and they're more attracted to these LED light, and they were just jumping at the chance to try and get into these crab traps. And with this discovery, the scientists sort of reckon that this is going to be to potentially open up a whole new inshore fishery mechanism. That's very much a global first. Apparently, no one else has sort of noticed this behaviour before. So yeah, because commercially, scallops are incredibly valuable, especially here in the UK, and apparently it's the fourth most valuable fishery in the UK, according to latest government sea fisheries statistics and whatnot. But most sea scallops are caught by dredging, which, of course, at an industrial scale is hugely damaging. We've spoken about it quite a lot in the past on the podcast. But by using scuba divers to hand pick them, of course, it makes it much more expensive and labor intensive, time consuming, and now by just putting a LED light that's powered by a couple of AA batteries inside of a crab or a lobster trap, apparently it's far easier to catch these scallops, and far more environmentally friendly. So hopefully this will sort of change that industry, try and reduce the amount of dredging that goes on, and people who still eat scallops can still eat their scallops. And in fairly similar news, on a similar tack to that, news has just been released that damaging fishing activities will be prohibited in 4 marine protected areas, MPAs, here in the UK, in an effort to protect those rare habitats and wildlife in UK waters. The bylaws, which have been subject to extensive consultation with industry and other stakeholders, will come into force from the 13th of June this year, 2022, and they're being introduced using new powers under the Fisheries Act and the UK's first major domestic fisheries legislation in nearly 40 years. So these new measures will prohibit fishing activities in those MPAs where there's evidence that they do harm wildlife or damage habitats. So these 4 new bylaws ban the use of bottom trawlers, dredges, demersal seines, which I've never heard of by myself, and semi-pelagic trawls as well, collectively known as bottom towed gear, over these certain areas. There's also additional restrictions in 2 of the sites preventing the use of certain static gear, such as pots, nets, or lines over especially sensitive areas, and this mostly comes from gov.uk, but also comes from Seaspiracy as well. That's how I first saw the news story. But they say, whilst this is great news, there's still many more MPAs in the UK that have little to no protection, which is what Sean and I always used to say is, how can you call it a marine protected area if you're still allowed to fish in it, which makes no sense to us whatsoever. But yeah, good, interesting news. And from the 13th of June this year, that's not that far away. It's only a few weeks. So it's nice to see something positive actually happen in a short space of time. A video went viral online this week from the qualified captain. If you don't follow them on Instagram, they're definitely worth taking a look at. I've followed them for a fair while now, and they basically upload videos of people on boats who either don't know what they're doing or they're just causing chaos. But one video particularly this week went viral, and it's of 2 two people on the bow of a yacht, and there's all of these balloons around the railings on the bow, and they're like celebratory balloon. It's been like a wedding or something. We don't really know from the video, but it's obviously after the fact. And instead of collecting the balloons and disposing of them, they basically just pop them with, I don't know, kitchen knives or something. And the video just shows just all of these balloons that are half deflated just falling into the water, and that's kind of it. And people went nuts with it, basically. So yeah, but now a 29-year-old man is facing a criminal charge after detectives sort of found him and tracked him down using this video, and then, yeah, of course, accused him of throwing deflated balloons into Biscayne Bay on Tuesday. And now, of course, environmentalists are looking to really sort of up the need for a ban, because whilst there is a current ban on balloon releases, it's kind of a weak one, and it's kind of wishy-washy. So they want to like really focus on this and try and really reduce the number of balloon releases, even with environmentally safe balloons, the ones that degrade over time. It's still quite dangerous. So because the penalties are still relatively low, they're hoping to make it a bit more serious. But yeah, the 29-year-old man was fined just over $2,500 for illegal dumping, and actually risks facing up to $10,000 in fines and time in jail, depending on what they find. So yeah, this kind of thing, it's like, well, no, especially when you're that much in public view, just don't do it, because it's really not worth it, and it's so bad for the environment. But yeah, people are calling for stricter legislation, but maybe more awareness as well. Just try and convince people, instead of like, oh no, we'll do this horrible thing to you if you do it. It's better to just educate them beforehand. So yeah, instead of finding them, just try and like put out a social media campaign just to let people know, hey, you know what, releasing balloons is actually an awful thing for the environment, because the sea turtles eat them and it clogs things up. It's just terrible. It takes forever for them to degrade. So yeah, just don't release balloons. And if you're done with them, don't pop them and then just let them float around in the marina, because that's an awful thing to do. And finally, Woody Harrelson has been cast in the Hollywood version of The Last Breath. The movie will follow in real time the tense true story of attempts to rescue Scottish saturation diver Chris Lemons, who is stranded at a depth of 100 meters. So if you've never seen it before, Last Breath, it was on, I can't remember which sort of online service, but it is one of those like BBC iPlayer or 4 on demand. I can't remember which one, but it tells the story and the accounts of people who are involved, of a saturation diver who was deep down underwater, working on a pipeline, I think, in the North Sea. And for whatever reason, it's been a while since I've seen it, but the mothership, because they were down in a bell and they're working off of that, the mothership above on the surface lost power or propulsion, and because of bad weather conditions, it was drifting off, which of course it's attached onto the bell, and then the divers themselves who were out in the water working at the time were then attached by their umbilical cables as well, and it just had this catastrophic effect, which effectively yanked Chris just from where he was working. They were trying to get back to the bell in safety, but then the umbilical just dragged him up onto one of these platforms and effectively cut the umbilical. And then, of course, everyone's struggling to to get the power back on the mothership, get everything sort of back in position, to get divers back into the water to rescue Chris, who effectively has no air at this depth, with the tiny bailout that he had with him, and 100 meters underwater. So this. I don't think they have an approximate release date, but if they've just cast sort of Woody Harrelson, along with a couple other actors, Simu Liu and Jimon Hunsu, and quite big names for this, so this is going to be quite interesting, and they're hoping that it's going to do quite well in the Cannes film festival. So this is definitely worth keeping an eye out for. It's probably going to be a couple of years, but it's quite nice that this is getting a Hollywood treatment, as it were. Not to say that there was anything wrong with the original sort of documentary, but having a bigger budget behind it is going to be really interesting to see what they can do with this true story. Moving on to my product of the week, which this week is the RF2 from Fourth Element. So the RF2 is a freediving wetsuit. The initials, the RF, as I said at the beginning, stands for recreational freediving. But this is a freediving wetsuit that's been inspired and effectively built by professional freedivers, having a lot of input in, this feature would be really nice in a suit, or I like it when a suit does this, I don't like it when it does that. Fourth Element has spent a lot of time with top tier freedivers to create a very practical suit, and because it's 6.54 mil, it's very well insulated. In fact, a lot of their promotional lifestyle shots are in Silfra, which is in Iceland, and so cold water diving. This is a two-piece wetsuit, so you get a top with like a beaver tail that goes between your legs and holds the top down, and a high-waisted trouser. It's open cell lining as well, which makes it, I imagine, just as easy to get in as any other freediving wetsuit. They do recommend environmentally friendly lubricants to help you get in, but once you're in, my golly, they're very warm suits. Because neoprene itself, as most divers know it, they have that like nylon lining, which it basically protects the neoprene foam, because neoprene itself is quite easy to rip and tear, but it also makes it so much easier for you to get in and out of it, because bare open cell neoprene is very sticky to your skin, which is great once you're in it because it really slows down water movement and ingress into the suit, so you can just dive in this wetsuit, but trying to get in and out of them is easier said than done. Other features of the suit, so it's all blind stitch and glued, so it's nice and sort of smooth, and again slows water ingress. But on the integrated hood and the shoulders, it actually has a smooth glide skin outer layer, which helps to reduce friction and reduce drag, so it's maximizing your efficiency in the water. And it's made to be as flexible and natural so that you can wear it all day without feeling weird or uncomfortable. It's made to be as practical as possible, but for the rest of the suit, it has a more traditional nylon lining for resilience, so it's strong and it's not going to sort of rip and get damaged. Over the seat, over your butt, you have reinforced sections. The same with the trousers. On the knees, you have reinforced sections just to protect the suit, as it were. And because it's a two-part suit, you have this top with the integrated hoods, which has perforated ear holes, which is quite nice for me to see. It just makes equalizing a lot easier, and you can actually hear things above the water. But also the trousers are high-waisted, so they continue up to about your navel, your belly button, and on the external layer of that is this I think they call it metal light coating, which is a smooth cell, so that seals against the open cell of the inside of the top, and you get an effective seal all around the waist to really like seal yourself in, slow that water ingress. You of course pair it with RF socks so that you can dive in colder waters and cover up your feet. But if you're looking to get into free diving and you want something a little bit thicker because you're diving in colder waters, or you're spending a lot of time in the water and you do need that insulation, then the RF2 is going to be a very nice, warm, flexible suit. They also make the RF1, which is like an all-in-one version of a freediving suit. Very similar. They have that glide skin material, but it's a one piece to get into, and I don't think that one comes with an integrated hood. There's a hooded vest that you pair with it, but it's just a traditional like steamer style suit. But if you want that integrated hood, then you need a separate hooded vest to go over the top of it, or you just go for the RF2. And then on to my question of the week, which this week is spearfishing a bad thing? So this kind of comes from those news stories about trying to make fishing more environmentally friendly, and the RF2 to a certain degree with freediving, and because it's quite, or I believe that it's fairly polarizing, spearfishing. From what I see online, it could just be those extreme polar opposites that you tend to see being the most vocal online. But for me, spearfishing is a good thing in that it's someone who's taking a bit more responsibility in what they consume. Personally, I don't eat that much sort of fish at all anymore. It's very rare that I eat fish because of the impact that it has on the marine environments. But I don't condemn someone who wants and does eat marine life. However, if they're completely unaware of where it comes from and where it's how it's collected, then it gets a little bit of a grey area for me. I'm not a huge fan of obviously bottom trawling and all of that, whereas spearfishing is, I think, legitimately the most environmentally friendly way to literally kill, catch and prepare your own food. Now, I don't support spearfishing on scuba. I feel that's a bit too much like cheating, but from freediving and apnea, as most people do it in Europe and across the world, it has a minimal impact because it's just one or two people in the water and they're only catching what they want. If you just go out to kill fish, then no, that's not a good thing. But if you're going out to specifically pick out that one particular fish that you're then going to consume, then it's the best, cleanest way of catching and collecting your own food, because there's zero bycatch. It's not as if the spear keeps on going and kills everything in line. It hits that one fish and that's what you catch, as opposed to nets and whatnot. You only catch what you want and what you're targeting. You're not catching anything by mistake, and there's also no ghost gear as well. You have minimal equipment with you. You have your spear gun and floats and lines and whatnot, but all of the lines come back with you, and if something does get stuck, then you can go down and free it and reclaim it. You don't leave any dangerous ghost gear when you're down there. So as far as spearfishing being sort of good or bad, I personally think that it's quite good, and it's quite a discussionary topic as well, because there are going to be people who think and believe quite justly that no, shouldn't be any killing of anything. However, it does become a bit hypocritical if they do go to their local supermarket and just pick up some frozen fish, because how that was caught and prepared was probably on one of these huge, great big trawling machines that catch it, like fillet it and then freeze it and almost package it all then and there. It's just floating factories that do so much peripheral damage to what's in the water, whereas one guy who goes in and only catches what he's going to have for dinner, if you're going to consume fish, I think that's probably the most responsible way to do it. And it does take some skill. It's not something that you can just pick up a cheap spear gun, jump in the water and just start catching fish. It does take quite a lot of skill and practice. So yeah, no, personally, I'm on the side of spearfishing, and I think we're going to start to see an increase in its popularity, with people becoming a bit more environmentally responsible and conscious about what's going on and how their food, especially seafood, is collected. I think we're going to start to see more and more people sort of going out. Obviously, you do need to be aware of local legislation and requirements wherever you are going, but I think we're going to start to see it more and more in our waters, and it is a much more responsible way of fishing. And that's it this week. If you enjoyed this, remember to like and subscribe, do all that social media stuff. Head over to YouTube, head over to Instagram as well, because that's where a lot of the new releases get put out first. If you just search for @simplyscuba, you should find us wherever you're looking, as well as our website, simplyscuba.com. I'll put links to all of the products and things that I've spoken about today down in the description below so that you can check them out and buy them from us at simplyscuba.com. If you've got any questions, comments, queries, corrections to anything that you've heard today, pop them down in the comments below, and if you use the hashtag AskMark in your question, I'll mention it in the Friday AskMark show. Thank you very much for listening, everybody, and of course, safe diving.